Welcome to Soul Shift, where modern science, ancient wisdom, and real life align to help you create a more joyful, balanced, and fulfilling life. I'm Mindy Gorman-Plutzer, and I'm here with my beautiful co-hosts, Ali Anderson and Christine Morgenstern Shin. Today, we're talking about leadership, but not the kind of leadership you might be thinking of, not the corner office, the title, the authority over others. We're talking about the kind of leadership that begins within, the kind that recognizes that you cannot lead others until you learn to lead yourself. And that learning to lead yourself is actually a profound healing journey. Our guest today understands this deeply. Eliana Barousse is a leadership coach, international keynote speaker, and author of The Leader Within Me, where she blends leadership stories across industries, somatic wisdom, and reflective practices to help people lead with heart, courage, and consciousness. Through her heart-centered approach, she helps leaders reconnect with their inner wisdom, regulate their nervous systems, and lead with clarity, courage, and compassion. She's an award-winning leadership executive whose thought leadership has been featured on global stages and trusted by organizations across Latin America and the United States. She's a sought-after keynote speaker whose work centers on authenticity, community wisdom, and conscious leadership. And what we love about Eliana's work is her simple but transformative truth that leadership is not about titles. It's about consciousness, healing, and the way we choose to show up for ourselves and our communities.
Welcome to Soul Shift, where modern science, ancient wisdom, and real life come alive.
Soul Shift is your weekly dose of inspiration and a reminder that meaningful change can be both gentle and powerful.
Together, we'll unlock practical tools, share conversations that spark something beautiful, and celebrate every facet of your incredible human experience.
Your energy matters, your growth matters, and you matter. Let's shift boldly,
joyfully,
together.
Eliana, welcome to Soul Shift. We are so honored to have this conversation with you.
I am so honored to be here. Thank you. This is such a beautiful space, and I can't wait to have this conversation and, get some of this, I don't want to say knowledge or wisdom. I think some of this remembering out into the world.
Sounds great. Okay, so Eliana, I want to start with this foundational concept that runs through all of your work, leading from within. For some, that phrase might sound abstract or even mystical, but you're talking about something that's really practical and essential. So what does it actually mean to lead from within?
I love this question, Mindy. And for me, it all started when, many years of leadership in corporate America. And even though I was hitting the targets, getting the accolades, being in front and center, which is always fun and exciting, I felt disconnected. I felt burnt out. I didn't know how to help my team get to the next level either. So this whole idea of leading from within came from my journey in finding my own voice, my own way, and helping my team find their voice and find their way. So it was the realization that until I led my life and showed up as my true self, with my flaws, with my vulnerability, with my voice, I was not going to be able to see on the other side of the screen, on the other side of a conversation, that impact that I so desperately wanted to have. So it all started with my own personal journey.
So it sounds to me as though you're sharing that someone can begin to reconnect with that leader within them, inside of them, but how important it is to do, especially during seasons of doubt and burnout, which is a topic that comes up so often.
Yes. I think it's very common as you start leading, especially in the corporate world, you really just don't know what you're doing. You're just following what other people have shown you, what's your thought of leadership. There's not a lot of organizations, unfortunately, that really walk you hand in hand to say, hey, this is what a leader does. This is what it looks like. This is how you have to find your own voice. So that journey can be a lot of hit and misses. And I think at the end of the day, I really wanted my team to feel supported, to feel seen. And I knew that if I was able to offer them myself as a human, not as a leader, as a person that's struggling too, that does have hard days, that sometimes feels like the task is too large, that they would be able to relate and show up, not only for me and for our organization, but especially for themselves. So this leading ourselves came from a realization that until I was able to show up with my faults, with my courage, with my brokenness, with my vulnerability, I wasn't going to be able to see that on the other side, right?
And it sounds like that raw vulnerability was the catalyst.
Yes, because I thought leaders weren't allowed to be vulnerable. I grew up in a home where my dad was a very recognized leader in the military back home in Venezuela. I mean, he was the epitome of what a leader would be, and he was not vulnerable, and he was not lenient in a lot of his ways. And I know that the military kind of has a different requirement of leadership than probably what I experienced in corporate America. But I was always under the impression that if I broke down in front of my team, if I showed them that I was scared or that I didn't know if we were going to make it or that I did think the tasks were too much, that I would be not offering them strength. And it turned out to be the total opposite. I was able to do both. Through my vulnerability, lend an open heart and really connect with my team and find that teamwork that I was looking for.
Thank you for sharing that.
I know so many people, including myself, see leadership as something that's very external and what you were just describing, right? I see the military gentleman being a very good leader in the external world. But what you're talking about is so much more internal, right? You talked about your vulnerabilities. And I'd love for you to talk into how do we shift from thinking of ourselves as needing to reach this external leader and taking it to an internal place so that we can lead others.
Thank you, Ali. This thought about leadership, we tend to associate, like we talked about at the beginning, like Mindy shared, with titles or with, if I don't have a team that, is under me, I'm not leading. We disassociate with the word leadership. Parker Palmer does such a beautiful job of explaining that in this world that strives on community, on home, on other people, we're all leading. We're leading ourselves. We're leading our voices. We're leading our homes. We're leading how we show up in the world. And yes, the word maybe is choice. You're choosing, but you choose from leading yourself. Well, this is where I want to put my energy into. This is how I want to show up in the world. These are the passions that I have. And I would love to see more of that shift because when you consider yourself a leader, you also take a little bit more responsibility, not only to yourself, but to those around you, to share more knowledge, to be more present, to hold more hands, and to impact the community as well. So I strive for everybody to feel that we are all leading in a way or another. And it doesn't have to be related to a title or a team or anything of that sort.
I love that what it sounds like you're describing is leadership's a state of being, right? Instead of a title that we've achieved.
Yes. And that's why I said remembering at the beginning, absolutely. Because if you think back onto how communities lived before, like there was somebody that would, do the farming and somebody would take care of the animals. All of that are signs of leadership. Somebody takes care of the school and the children, and we are all collaborating to grow our communities. And we are all leading in a certain way. So I think taking that responsibility also makes it feel good. Like, yes, how am I going to show up for myself? How am I going to show up for others? And what is that impact that I'm leading?
Eliana, I think what's beautiful is you're sharing how everyone can contribute in their own way and really having their own internal gift shine to that. So it's not like a force type of a thing. To me, it sounds like everything's centered around love,
So much love.
Yeah. And I feel that thread through, your work and how you want people to show up and how you're, teaching how influencers can actually take more of that, use their inner role for the outer work, right? What I think about in terms of nervous system work or the physiology, if you think about it, our nervous system, any type of inherited belief systems, whether they're limiting beliefs or not, or maybe how we grew up, culturally, or identity wounds, all of this, because this is who we are, right? Or at least who we think we are. It influences our leadership voice. So can you help us understand that connection, essentially how your internal state shapes our external leadership?
Yes. I have seen in my work and what I've experienced with my clients is that they show up burned out, suffering from comparison, not knowing how to obtain what the organizations or life is asking from them. And that's when I see the disconnect. When I ask them, what are your true strengths? How do people see you? They don't know. They're just following along and they haven't really taken the time to get to know themselves a little bit better and to see how they're projecting themselves in the world, but also to practice. And that is like my favorite word when I work with people one-on-one, because we are so hard on ourselves that we need to do everything perfect, that things need to look a certain way, that need to feel a certain way, sound a certain way. But truly, we're here to practice. So if I told you that when you connect to yourself and you feel comfortable, you are a very kind person and you can be kind in your leadership. And I say, Chris, why don't you go practice? How would this look in practice? It doesn't feel as hard as me saying, Chris, you have to be kind all the time because this is one of your values. And if you're going against your values and everything, it creates that, again, we're putting so much work, but we can't even connect. So a lot of the work that I do is trying to help people reconnect, like you said, go back to the basics. Who am I as a person? And who Eliana is as a person, how can she support her team through those things? And when things get hard, what do I lean on to practice? How do I practice? Maybe it's being more vocal, which was something that was definitely one of the things that I had to practice because I always felt that my voice in corporate or with executives was a female voice, was maybe a minority voice, maybe not the most experienced voice, and imposter syndrome and all this noise in my head that it had to look or feel a certain way. And when you allow yourself to practice, it's not the final, right? So you're practicing. So, okay, if I practice, I can fail. And if I practice, I can come back and practice again. And I think that connection to yourself, to your values, to your body, is so important as we transition into a thoughtful leadership state of being, because your body's going to show you, right? Your body's going to tell you, it's going to give you signs. So if you connect that with who am I? What is my body trying to tell me? And what do I need to practice? I think it's a softer way. I also feel that the world is so hard and we're so hard on ourselves that it could be nice to practice a little softness here and there.
Absolutely. And you're stripping the word performance out of it and you're layering in compassion and grace. I feel like it's nothing better than that, I think.
Yeah. And it comes to that word love. It's so hard, corporate America, to love. Vulnerability are still words that are starting to trickle through, but they're not all in our corporate systems yet. But that's who we are. So, the more we allow it, not only from our sides as leaders that are showing up for other people, just the results are incredible. People relate, they want to show up, they are more open, they tell you their feelings, they feel supported, and the organization thrives. There's just no other way. The organization thrives when the team is working together, when they're feeling seen, where they're feeling heard. And that shift maybe subtle, but it's very, very important.
It's also important. The message is so important. It runs so deeply. And, you've used the term practice. You've talked about connecting. It really is all healing. It's healing work, right? So it need to be separate from leadership work. They can coincide, right? They need not be parallel. And you talked a little bit about finding your own voice. Was that a healing moment for you, finding your own voice in your career that helped you realize that leadership and healing were deeply intertwined?
Oh, yes, so much. First of all, when we recognize those things that we are that maybe we have been putting aside or not shining as bright as we could, and we start to allow them and give them permission to come, to be a part of who you are, to accept all the parts of yourself, there's deep healing. In my case, my father, who was an incredible example, was also a very tough leader. He was very tough at home. And this whole journey has also allowed me to heal that relationship and understand him better and know that there wasn't just one piece of my father either. My dad was hard and he was very demanding, but he was also joyful. And I remember him laughing at home, and people really, really thanked him for his work. And every time we showed up at the military bases, they came up to him with so much respect. So it's not just this or that, it's this and that. And that allows for yourself to heal in so many ways. Finding my voice was only one piece of it, but, writing the book and seeing how other leaders go back to those moments that really mark them and how they pay it forward. It's so beautiful. It's all about relationships. It's all about something that was hard, that somebody held your hand and moved you through, or somebody saw you in a way that you didn't see yourself, or you stood up for yourself. It's human stories. It's not really leadership stories. And that's why I wanted to show it from so many different perspectives, because I was a corporate leader. Now I'm doing different kind of work because I think this is so important. But I have sheriffs that I interviewed. I have corporate executives that I interviewed. There's a story of my father in the military, of my mother who was a school teacher. So it just goes to show how you can find your voice or see yourself reflected in so many different areas that probably have nothing to do with your life.
But that takes a lot of internal awareness, looking deeply within ourselves, recognizing what needs to change, right? Because we can't change what we don't see. We can bring compassion into the picture. It makes it so much easier to accept what could be hurting us.
Absolutely. That's why that word leadership, sometimes people are like, oh, no, that's not me, because it sounds like it has a lot of responsibility or a lot of weight maybe to that word. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And I think we're always doing work. If we're able to open our eyes and see, like I said, how your body's feeling and maybe just connect to a small part, right? Some of us may have been on very deep journeys of healing and, everything in the kitchen sink has been thrown. Like me, I feel like my healing journey has gone through so many different things. But it doesn't have to be that either, right? It could be just a small shift. It can be just one little area, and that will allow for maybe a little bit more opening to your heart to something else, right?
The phrase that keeps coming to mind is the compassionate leader. I feel like that's what you're offering to people. I understand one of your key takeaways is your perspective of using the nervous system as your first leadership tool. And from a neuroscience perspective, you're talking my language, my friend. And for the world, especially the corporate world, right? This is a really big paradigm shift. And so could you help us understand how the nervous system influences the way we lead or make decisions or communicate?
Yes, of course. Even though this is your area, so maybe you should be telling a little bit more about that too. But I feel, we all know about the breath. We all know what it does to our organs. It keeps us alive. But I think if we take a deep breath, all of us as human beings can understand how that lowers your shoulders. It makes you feel more present, relaxed, open to other things. And again, when we talk about performance and leadership and metrics and all of these words that can be time constraints and can feel heavy and can feel difficult and all of that noise behind that word leadership, and understand that until we are not regulated, until we are not understanding what's happening within our bodies, it's very hard to show up for somebody else. I mean, those that are mothers know that if they don't get any sleep, it's so difficult to take care of a child. If you don't feed yourself, your body's just not going to sustain you. So if you don't allow your nervous system to relax, it's very hard to show up for others and to have them show up for themselves too, because we can feel the energy around each other. We can sense that something's not 100% as it should be, or this is tense. You were right, Chris. I think in corporate America, it's very hard to allow ourselves the space to minimize that burnout. Like a week vacation, it's not real, right? You just go right back into it. So I think it's so important to add little things throughout your day, 5 minutes outside in the sun, walking barefoot if you can, water intentionally, look at it, be here with it, breathing, doing something fun, music, one song. Again, we are in this mentality that it's all or nothing. If I don't have an hour to work out, then I'm just not going to do it at all. And it's not like that. If we offer our nervous system just little breaks, it will allow for more softness, like I spoke before. And I think as leaders, we need to incorporate that a little bit more. And I think the shift is coming, especially when we talk about nervous system, because we see so many people burned out and so many people exhausted and all these layoffs that are happening. I mean, we know what that does to our nervous system. So I think if there's one thing that'll start shifting quicker is the body response, because I think that's universal. Maybe the vulnerability will take a little bit more, but I think at least the recognizing that your nervous system is trying to tell you something, and until you feel safe, you won't be able to come out and breathe a little bit different, I think is happening now. And again, it's about that giving yourself permission, right? So if I give myself permission to show up vulnerable, I also need to give myself permission to understand what limits I need to create in my life, or what vocabulary is acceptable or not for me. All of those, it's just so many little things. So that book, Tiny Little Experiments, what little experiment can you put into your life today and see, oh, that felt really good for me today, taking that 5-minute break. We talked about it all the time in corporate America, go walk, be on your call on your phone. I mean, nobody really did that. It was just all up here. So again, if we just allow a little bit and practice it, and that will just create so much more presence.
Well, thank you for sharing. It's a gift that you're here. You're shifting the way America works. We really, really need it right now, right? So thank you. Yeah.
So well said, like really making a big shift. And Eliana, I'm with you that I feel like the idea of the nervous system, we're all becoming more aware of it, right? And I love that what you're sharing, you and Chris, they're both sharing how important the nervous system is in the leadership position and how much of a role it plays in our leadership position. So I want to ask you like a very practical question, right? So if you're in that leadership position, whether it's a difficult conversation at work or a difficult conversation at home or anything, you're making a big decision and you're navigating some kind of conflict. What is a practical tool our listeners could take away in that moment of downshifting the nervous system if it's getting really heightened, but stay in that leadership role? Because I think so often when we're in that leadership role, we can't, as we've talked about, can't show vulnerability, right? So how do we let ourselves just relax in that moment, but stay a leader in the moment as well?
Yes. One quick thing that I like to bring that actually was taught to me by somebody I care about very, very much, one of my coaches, that hard, difficult situation, things are heated up, we always tend to tense, right? And the beauty that we're behind a camera allows for other things to happen, shifting down. So one thing that I was offered and I tend to do very commonly is open my hands. So if it's a tough conversation, I feel myself maybe getting defensive or I don't understand or any of those emotions that feel separating, we tend to clench. If you open your hands, and I tend to put them on my lap facing the person that I'm speaking to. I mean, you can do it in a meeting as well. You put them in your lap. It's just a response to your nervous system that you have to remain open. You're here open to the conversation, open to what's happening and allow, right? So that's one quick thing that I think helps in heated situations where we clench and tense up. I mean, of course, the breath, we always talk about breathing, but what about if you just open your hands and it's like a peace offering, like I'm receiving, I'm here.
I love that tip. And I think it's something that we can all do with, and you don't even have to tell anybody you're doing it, right? You can just go into your nervous system and say, I love that tip. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I love the way you framed the concept of courage in your work. You've said courage as a regulated state. It's so different from the typical understanding of courage that we often think of as needing to push through fear or gritting your teeth and doing it anyway.
Yes, I think it could be very big and very small. And I think one thing that I want to offer is that courage looks different for all of us. So allow for what courage means to you to come through. And I don't know if y'all saw, but the first female, she's 25 years old, she just rode across the Atlantic of 46 days. I mean, that takes a level of courage that to me I cannot even comprehend. But what if courage is for you, like it was for me, to raise my hand, to say, hey, I want to intervene today? What if courage is for you to open your hands when you're having a tough conversation? So I think is really important to me is that we use a lot of these words as generalizations. Also, when you get a test, right? Like you do one of these Myers-Briggs tests and they tell you that you're courageous. But what does courage mean to you? So always go back to yourself. Like, what does that mean for me? And for me, courage maybe isn't like Tyron that I just said that rode across the Atlantic. For me, courage may be something smaller, and that doesn't make it less important. So I think that's also very important when we do this work is know it's you with you. So this is leadership for you so that you can show up for others, so that you can show up for yourself. But there's no scorecard, right? This isn't, I did it better than Mindy today. And I think that's what allows the practice and permission to come through a little bit quicker because it's just here. It's here. It's not out there.
So I like the way you tied in the bioindividuality of courage because each of us are completely different and we all have different stories. And what I was thinking of was that the energetics are aligned when you tie in that bioindividuality versus using the textbook definition of courage, right? Because that means something different for each of us. And thank you for sharing what to do when you're regulated and using that piece. What happens when everything starts falling apart, right? So when you're in the fight or flight, when you're dysregulated and, we have to make things happen as a leader, how do you coach people there? Like, how can we actually still make a great decision or communicate and connect with others or show up with full presence if there's something going on in the background that's dysregulating us? Maybe we're thinking about our kids in the background, right? And there's something that's, really powerful going on. How do they do that at the same time?
That's a beautiful question. And the truth is that there's not one way. There's not a prescription that I can say, these are the first 3 steps that I can tell you to show up as a good leader while you're dysregulated. I believe that until you can recognize it with yourself, I think recognition of what's happening is the first step. So if you can recognize, I'm in this conversation and I'm not here, I'm not showing up, all I'm thinking about is whatever is in the back of my mind or my boss and, the metrics or whatever it is. If you can take a breath and acknowledge what is happening, I think that's the first step that will help you figure out what to do next. We don't have to push through every single time. So there's also times that we need to allow ourselves to say, I need to take a day, or I cannot have this conversation right now. You know, Chris, something very interesting happened to me once is that I had a tough conversation with somebody on my team, and they showed up and something was wrong. So I immediately noticed, what's going on, something's wrong. They go into, very much detail. Of course, I'm here. What can I do? And the time passes. I still need a response, for some of the things of the tough conversation that I had to have. So what I did in that moment was, first of all, remember, we're human. It happens to all of us. Nobody predicts when or how things are going to happen. So I asked that person to take the rest of the day, go regroup. And then I sent them a message and I said, hey, I know we had our one-on-one scheduled and we talked about these things that are very important. Please take the day, do whatever you need to do. I do need to tell you that we do need to talk about some of these metrics. So let me know if tomorrow is a good day, if the next day is a good day, or if you want me to send you my questions via email. So try to accommodate a little bit, your place and your script. Some leaders are like, well, I have to have this response right now, but do you really? So I think that's also really important. Recognizing what's happening to yourself so that you can know what the next step is. And I think it's kind of one of those things that when you see it, you can't unsee it. So if I know that I'm just focused on my kids or this big thing behind me, then I can say, okay, I can't show up like this every day. Something's got to give. So then you take some time. That would be my first as, self-leadership. And then with others, just offer alternatives.
What I'm hearing is that you're saying there's power in the pause, right? You're having to take a beat, whether it's a couple breaths or a half a day. So expanding on that.
And being able to recognize what you need, right? So life is not easy. I don't think it's easy for any of us all the time. It's definitely not. When you recognize that things are happening, what do you need? What do you need? So that's why I always go back to self-leadership, because it's all about what's happening here. Like journaling, I think is wonderful, but it doesn't work for everybody. Again, like we talked. So what do I need? Do I need, space outside? Do I need a walk? Do I need to talk to somebody? Do I need to find another resource to help me navigate this? But I do know what doesn't work is, shoving it aside or denial or, pretending it's not there. So I think it's time for us as leaders to show up self-aware and know that when things are happening, we have to address it within ourselves.
Is that vulnerability again?
Eliana, I need to ask you about your book, The Leader Within Me. And I know that you share stories of leaders across so many different industries, and they're navigating all these different contexts and these different challenges. But can you share a little bit about these core patterns that you noticed as everyone was going through the same leadership journey?
Yes. One of the patterns that I love to see is we don't all know what we're doing. We're just trying to figure it out. And we are just trying to do the best we can, honestly. Especially when you're giving a position of leadership. Nobody goes into being a leader saying, oh, I can't wait to mess with these people. Now, that's just really not the thing. We want to do good for ourselves, for others, for the organization, whether that's a competitive nature, whether it's a human nature. We want to show up and do our best. And I think along the way, there's always God sense and there's always little tiny miracles, and that can be in the form of a person, it can be in a form of a phrase, it can be in a form of something that you will feel that you're going to be like, okay. And that's going to shift your perspective and you're going to pay it forward in that way. That is one of the things that I found throughout that I thought was so beautiful. No matter if this was a sheriff that just had a deputy killed in action, no matter if this was a 20-year-old new to technology intern that lost herself and then suddenly somebody told her, I want you to be who you are, and then took that on forever. There's so many different examples, but it's always the same. It's somebody or something that made you realize oh, I got this. I can do this now, or remember something, oh, yes, I can do this. And it allows you to show up in a different way. And I thought that was just so beautiful to see that we're much more alike than we like to think.
I love that you shared that pattern. And I love if all of our listeners and ourselves included can think about that and be aware when that awareness comes. And oh, this is the moment where I can shift a
Yeah.
little. Yeah.
This is something that you might not know, but what if you sat down and thought, what was that one thing in your life that leadership-wise affected you and changed you, and how have you paid it forward? I think we can all go back, whether it was a teacher or it was a phrase, a book, a song, something starts to move us. And it probably won't be just one, right? There's a lot of things and times in our lives that require different types of intervention, but that allows us to, oh, yeah, I do remember that. I do remember that one leader or that one teacher or that one interaction or that one song that really helped me push through a hard time or really helped me through a certain stage of my life.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing is the ripple effect of the individual transformational journeys, right? And how they relate to collective healing. Basically, so when we heal ourselves, we expand what's possible for everyone around us.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And that's really why I wanted to become a leader, because I wanted to help others and I wanted to impact others in a positive way. And I really thought it was going to be a different thing versus, metrics and all of that. But then I found out I could do them both together. And when I showed up as myself, I allowed them to show up as themselves. And it allows you to question things like, is this really what I want to do with my life? Is this really the type of work or energy or people or organization that I want to be included in? And it allows us to make different choices and to stand up for who we are. And if you do it and show others, I promise you, they'll start to notice and they'll be like, oh, I think I want to try some of that.
And then another message here is that you don't have to fix yourself to lead.
No, you have to be yourself to lead.
And know yourself, right? It's that awareness, that self-awareness, right? So many people think that they need to change to be more of anything, actually, right? The disease of not enough is pervasive.
It's so hard. And the comparison, right?
Oh.
What is that person next to me doing? What are they achieving? One crazy thing that I mentioned in my keynote is that, and especially nowadays where the world is so external, it's just connected in your phone, right? Like you see everybody's lives and achievements and all of that. It's very easy to get lost in the, oh, I want that, I want that, I want that, or look at all this accomplishment, oh, I want that. But we don't take the time to really think, do you really want that person's life? Like, do you want the step-by-step that got them from point A to that shiny thing that you're seeing? Probably not. You just want the shiny thing. So if you want the shiny thing, whatever that may be, how can you do it in your own way? How can you go towards it as yourself, not pretending, not comparing yourself, no. I think we need to allow ourselves to be more authentic. And I know that word is also like ominous. Like, what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. It just means you feel good in your skin. It means that you are really proud of yourself at the end of the day because you did the thing. You wore the earrings. You were loud or weren't or danced or didn't. And that's all acceptable. And again, it's individual. So there's no comparison in the me game.
Or they say comparison is the thief of joy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But so much becomes possible through what you're describing, the self-awareness, the identity work, healing our origin stories, right? So much is possible when we stop trying to fix ourselves. And as you say, start knowing ourselves. I just love that concept. I really do. It's special and it's not easy. That takes courage.
It does take courage
to look within. So thank you for bringing that to us.
But also remember, it's just one tiny micro experiment or one tiny practice at a time. It doesn't have to feel like, oh, now I have to be myself.
Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful. I love it. Oh, we could keep going. I know we could keep going. But before we close, I want to make sure our listeners have your key takeaways clearly, right? The truths you want them to carry with them. Can you summarize those for us?
Yes. Allow yourself the permission to show up in the world as you, whatever that means in that moment for you. Be curious enough to get to know yourself a little bit better, even if it's just a tiny bit every day. And show up as the leader you are in your life so that you can help others also show up in theirs.
I love that.
That's so beautiful. And for our listeners who are resonating with this, which I know many are, if they want to go deeper, you have your book called The Leader Within Me.
Yes.
And you also offer coaching programs. Can you tell us a little bit about where to find the book and where to find the coaching programs?
Yes, absolutely. So the book is on Amazon. It's also on my website, which is elianabarousse.com. My coaching sessions are there too, but always feel free to write to me. I tell anybody, if you have any questions, if you're just not sure where to go, I'm the one that manages my Instagram. So please reach out. My email is my first name, Eliana at elianabarousse.com. I'm just open. I want to help. So reach out. There's no wrong question. There's no wrong way to do it. And I'm here to hopefully see you through it.
Wonderful. Eliana, thank you so very much for this profound conversation and for the wisdom that you're bringing to the world through your book, your speaking, your heart-centered coaching. The reminder that leadership is not about titles, but consciousness, healing. And I love this, how we show up. It's transformative. And to our audience, everyone listening, remember that you are already a leader, whether or not you have a title, whether or not you're in a formal position of authority. The way you lead yourself, the way you show up in your family, your workplace, your community, that all matters. And that's leadership. And when you do the inner work to heal your nervous system, to know your origin story, to regulate yourself, you expand what's possible for everyone around you. So don't forget to grab Eliana's book, The Leader Within Me. And please take advantage of that 25% discount on her coaching programs that she's so generously offering if you're ready to go deeper into this work. And we'll have all this information in our show notes. As we always say here on Soul Shift, small shifts create big transformations. And sometimes the most powerful shift is recognizing that the leader you've been looking for is already within you. So until next time, keep shifting your mind, keep igniting your soul, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for sharing the sacred time today.
We hope something in this conversation touched your heart
And offered nourishment for your soul's journey.
Remember, transformation is most effortless when it happens one tender shift at a time.
Until next week, we invite you to carry one insight from today into your life.
Not as a task.
Think of it as a superpower to yourself.
If something resonated, we'd love to hear from you. If you're joining us on YouTube, feel free to leave us a comment below.
Your words ripple outward, offering connection and comfort to others walking this path beside you.
If Soul Shift feels like home, please subscribe and consider leaving us a review.
Your support will help us reach more hearts that need to hear they're not alone.
We're holding you in love, so know you're not alone. Your journey matters.
May your heart be filled.
And may your path be filled with grace.